Welcome back. We are in for a climactic battle to decide the fate of the Earth. Not that you would be able to tell this from any of the in-game graphics. This is a generic problem with games of this era, which is 1994 for those of you with short memories. I'm sure I refer to it quite often. The computers at the time just didn't have the processing power to simulate properly epic fleet battles and so on, and also either designers didn't feel it was worth it, or it was just an extra thing to fit on a CD, but there's no model of the Earth anywhere in the background, despite the fact that we are, in theory, in Earth orbit. Some games of this era, or slightly later than this era, such as Myth the Fallen Lord, which was released in 1997, actually went out of their way to write a narrative which explained why it was that you were never actually involved in major battles, but Wing Commander 3 just expected you to suspend your disbelief, which is not that bad, I suppose. Anyway, you can't save the Coventry here, you really can't save the Sheffield. You can save the Coventry for a while, but it will die at a point in the mission which will be fairly obvious when it happens, so it's not worth expending a lot of effort to keep it alive until that point. It's vaguely useful, but it's not that useful given we're in an Excalibur. While I said this is a climactic battle for the fate of the Earth, this is the losing path mission, so it might surprise you to learn that we can't win it. Well, it might do, actually. The reason it might is that in Wing Commander 2 you could get a winning ending in the losing path. The various Wing Commander games all had losing paths, but they all did them differently. Wing Commander 1 was quite a convoluted path structure. There were 13 different systems in it, but you only had to go to 7 or 8 of them in order to actually win, or lose. That was the general length of the path through the game. There was no way to go to all of the sectors in one playthrough. Wing Commander 2 and Wing Commander 3 had broadly similar structures. It's a sort of 2 strikes and you're out deal. In each case you had decision series of missions where you did well, you went to a winning path mission. If you did badly, you went to a losing path mission, and if you failed at the losing path missions, then you'd get to the losing ending. Now the difference is that in Wing Commander 2 you could win the losing ending. Basically what happened, there was a bit of a symmetry to it. In the winning path you were doing a deep strike against the Kilrathi starbase that coordinated their actions in the Enigma sector, whereas in the losing ending you were defending Olympus Station, the most strongly fortified Confederation position in that sector. And you could win either of those engagements, and you would still be a hero. But in Wing Commander 3, you can't win the losing path. Once you get sent to Proxima, Earth is doomed. You can get sent to Proxima, there's 3 or 4 ways that we've already encountered. If you fail to stop the invasion of Tamayo 2, you'll be sent to Proxima. If you don't save Lakanda 4, then instead of the missions we played in the Black Main system, where you're defending the base and trying to get transports through to it, you are instead covering the evacuation of Black Main base, and if the Kilrathi kill too many transports during that, you'll be sent to Proxima. And if you don't do either of the first 2 missions in the Ariel system correctly, where you're hiding in a nebula and shooting at Kilrathi convoys, then you'll be sent to the Delius system instead of Caliban, which is an attack on a Kilrathi base in an asteroid belt, and if you screw that up, you're sent to Proxima. Then, in the bit of the winning path we've not done yet, there's a whole load of more ways to get sent to Proxima, because once you get to the final CD of 4, which is where we're more or less at now, it's 1 strike and you're out rather than 2 strikes and you're out. Fail a critical mission and there is no hope left for humanity. Nice to keep the stakes, nice and low. So that's the way the path structure works in Wing Commander 3. And there is a vague point to it, the no way back nature of the losing path. And that's that the writers want to emphasise the them or worse nature of the Terran Kilrathi war at this point. I mean, the backstory has already established that Kilrathi are willing to wipe all life out on a planet. We had Sirius and Warsaw during Fleet Action, and Goddard in Secret Missions 1. But it's still not something that the majority of people who played Wing Commander 3 would be familiar with. So it's good to show that the Kilrathi will wipe out all life on Earth if you let them, and therefore that at least by some moral codes, any method the Confederation used to avoid that fate is justified. So that's the situation and the reason, I think, why there was no winning ending for the losing path. It's to make it clear that the Confederation is in danger of extinction. The whole idea behind actually having a losing path is a bit of an odd one. I mean, it's a very Wing Commander concept, but if you were making a new space game, I can't see why you would want to waste creative talent, designers on missions that the majority of players of the game weren't going to play, since most people restart when they lose missions. It's a part of the Wing Commander background to some extent, though Wing Commanders 4 and 5 didn't have them, so even Origin gave up on the idea in the end. And I think rightly so. A branching mission tree is an idea that sounds quite clever, but in practice it mostly just represents wasted effort. Anyway, so you take the radical step of actually talking about what's on the screen for a while, you may have noticed I just picked up some damage. This is a thing that happens in the Excalibur a bit. It's got pretty thin armour, so you can run into 2 or 3 enemies simultaneously, and that will happen. In this case it was contributed to by me not having my target locked, which is because Strackers don't come re-locked on when we drop out of Cloak, so I didn't have the auto-trackers turned on, which meant that I missed because Stracker's quite a small target, and hey, we've already established that Wing Commander 3 doesn't really like you to be able to hit the enemy. I mean, that's where a lot of the difficulty comes from, and it's why the Excalibur blows the difficulty curve out of the water, because a game which is based on it being really hard to hit your enemies is not going to be very hard no matter what else you do, when you can hit your enemies quite easily. Another thing the Excalibur does is it almost forces you to fly in what I regard as the correct defensive manner for most engagements, because it's got a lot of gun firepower and a lot of gun energy, but a low recharge rate. So you can only sustain shooting an enemy for a few seconds, and that means that you fly in what I tend to regard as the correct manner to fly in Wing Commander, which is to give an enemy a few blasts of your gun banks, fly around, do some evasion, and then come back again when your guns have recharged. Unless you're not paying any attention at all, you probably noticed the ship just arrived. That's a Havarkan class Dreadnought. It's a rather stupid ship for a couple of reasons, which I'll talk about in the thread because I won't have time right now, I don't think. From our perspective, what we really need to know is it's very big. It's the reason that it's not worth expending much effort to defend your destroyers at the start of the mission, because they'll always go down to that. And that, like most Kilrathi capital ships of a certain size, it has the Achilles heel that it has a hangar bay and you can fly inside it and blow up the ship from the inside. It's actually sufficiently large that the rendering engine is about to get confused as to whether or not it should display it, and it will flicker on and off a bit for a while as I approach it. Like so. This is the best way to fly into it. The hangar bay is just in this gap here, and this approach has the advantage of going the shortest distance under the guns of the Dreadnought. Other approaches can get you killed more often. But once in, there's no guns that shoot in here, so it's just a case of matching speed, boosting power to your weapons so that you can carry on firing when your gun banks are dry fast enough that you beat the shield regeneration on the Dreadnought, which is actually very high, so if you don't boost your weapon energy you can't destroy this ship. And then having a lot of patience, and I mean a lot of patience. The other problem it does actually have is that sometimes you're not quite sure where you're shooting, so you can be trying to destroy one section of the ship and you're actually aiming at another one, or you think you're doing damage to the ship and you're not even hitting it in some areas that appear to have part of the ship, but they are actually just loose textures. Like what I'm doing now is not actually doing any damage. It took me a while to realise that. So yeah, anyway, 11 minutes later, this bugger does eventually go down. Fortunately for you didn't have to sit there and do it. Anyway, that doesn't actually complete the mission. Like I said, we can't win this, so it's just a case of dying, really. I say dying, though, even though I don't actually eject. The cutscene deems you to have ejected in this mission. There is, as I have said, no way to win. Enjoy the losing cutscenes. I've been Elan, this has been Wing Commander 3 Heart of the Tiger, and join me next time when we have another saviour coming from Combat Command.
Sir, all our shields are down. We can't stop them.
They are not taking my ship.
Sir, what are you doing? You're heading right into their fleet.
We'll take as many of them with us as we can. Make your peace, Mr. Rollins.
At last we meet face to face. The heart of the tiger.
You'll never truly conquer Earth, you know. Not before you have to destroy it.
It is of small consequence. Your homeworld is a watery planet, not an environment I have ever cared for. It is a pleasure at last to have finally and completely conquered you. The Kilrathi are not, however, without what you humans call mercy. We shall grant you the opportunity to plead for your miserable life.
Screw you.
For you, Heart of the Tiger, a warrior's death.